Welcome back, everyone, to the delayed Thursday night edition of the Week 8 Review ILBATDs podcast. I'm joined, as always, by the commish. We are minus the defending champ, but we are a huge plus Mr. Masarofo. Welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Let's dive right into the action here. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. Low scoring affair, my matchup with Trevor this week. I think I was the third lowest scoring team and managed to get a win, a narrow one. My trend of starting the wrong quarterback continues. Although fortunately Kirk Cousins made my decision easier for weeks moving forward by not being able to play. So I had said I was going to stick with Goff, that I was 0 for 2 after making that call, but I guarantee Goff will score more points than Cousins the rest of the year, so we'll at least be good in that category.
Safe bet. It's definitely a safe bet.
Absolutely.
But this was a week of a lot of close games. I mean, the biggest game was 14 points. So 3 points here is just like everyone else. It's like, squeaking this one by. Butt cheek clencher, if you will.
Oh yeah.
It's tough when you're on that QB carousel and neither one wants to really take their spot, claim their role. But I guess by default it's going to be Goff now. Are you confident with him, or are you just kind of happy that you don't have to make a decision week on week now?
I mean, at this point, it is what it is. I feel like he is a QB1 in fantasy, but he's not like Rob's Patrick Mahomes, who's gonna be able to win you a couple weeks, right? I think he's serviceable, and we can stick him in there, and he's probably not gonna have any negative point games like Watson had earlier this year. But I'm not counting on him to explode for 35 in 1 week. He doesn't really run. So it's pretty much just he's got a good offense around him. He's got some weapons, but he'll do a job. We drafted him pretty late, and he hasn't really overperformed, but he hasn't underperformed either.
I think he's going to surprise you the second half of the season here. He's going to turn up. They're finally giving the ball to Gibbs, and it's got to go up from there, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, they look good. The Detroit Lions look like a very capable team. They don't look like the Detroit Lions.
Right.
They look like they know how to win games. It's not just, they have a good offense and they have a good defensive line. It's like they're doing the right things to win the game. And that starts with, Dan Campbell. But I've just been impressed by them. You never expect the Lions to be competent team, and they're handling business. But it looks like your team pretty much handled business too, between ETN and Jamar Chase. They're finally, or well, not the ETN, but Jamar Chase is really finally solidifying himself as, being consistent again. But Trevor, I think Trevor's needed this more than you did, but you still, got this one through.
Yeah, Bengals offense definitely is finding their groove. I still cannot find a tight end. We're changing tight ends again this week. I'm looking for a reliable option at that spot in my roster. I was nervous having Kelsey on the other end, and he fortunately didn't really do a whole lot. The whole Kansas City offense didn't really do a whole lot in this one. Another unfortunate thing for Trevor is I think Bourne is out for the season now. Or at least long term, and that was an important player for him. I do have some notes that the defending champ Cam Cooper sent me, and he said, considering that someone is going to have to slide into that flex spot for Trevor, shine or shade, this is the worst fantasy bench ever assembled for Trevor.
Wait, specifically for Trevor, or just worst bench? Because
that Trevor's bench is the worst bench in the history of fantasy football.
It's pretty bad, but unfortunately I can't speak. I'm in the running right now with him for a horrible bench.
Yeah, I couldn't say it was just because you got 13 from Moss on his bench. He's got points on his bench, so you can't say it's a bad bench when he might, the bench has got some green numbers in there. But
Yeah,
I guess when we get
I
to
thought it was a little harsh from Cam to say that. I don't think Trevor has a good bench, but a little harsh. I'm gonna
I
shade
feel
that
like
as the worst
it's
ever.
yeah, I wouldn't shine worst ever. I'd say more so inconsistent. He's got guys that'll pop off like Moss, even with getting what 45% of the snap count that week, and he
Mhm.
still got almost 15 points on his bench. You got to respect that.
All right, we can move on to a serious overperformance by Rob, your squad, considering Patrick did nothing to help you and still managed to outperform expectations by 20 points. Another close matchup, the theme of the week. We talked about this last week as being a matchup that both teams had to have. We kind of felt like the loser might be eliminated from the playoff race here. How'd you feel about your squad's performance?
I brought him in the clubhouse real early, and I said, this is it, make or break. You're going to be on the team, or you're going to get dropped. And unfortunately, Mahomes is on the trading block now. So I know you got struggles in QB land. I'm going to put him out there for everybody. But right now, my team performed, but not up to my expectations. I got lucky. I mean, you have Shaheed who catches two passes for just like all of the yards and gets me 22 points. That's just insane. I can't bank on that week to week.
No.
My like strong wide receiver too is what, Lockett. Again, I can't bank on that week to week. So, Dallas defense finally came back around and looks like they're on the upswing, hopefully for a week or two here. But then my bench, I mean, if you can scroll down and take a look at my bench, my kicker is outperforming everybody week to week, like in both projected points and actual points. It's insane. And he plays for the Cowboys. Like, I hate starting him.
Yeah, your Cowboys specialists are really doing a job for you here between the defense and the kicker. Very impressive.
Yeah,
I wonder. Go ahead, Colin.
I was just gonna say this is a tough bench. Like I don't know what next week's matchup looks like, who the buy is, who is and who isn't out. But you don't have a lot to work with back there. You got your 11 on the field, and that's who's playing 90, all minute, every minute. But I like your pass catchers. I know you just mentioned that you're not really confident in them. Um, but there are talented pass catchers who are essential pieces to each offense. Because Rashid Shaheed is the only guy in that offense that can really break out a big play.
Yeah, go deep.
So I understand not being able to bank on it week on week out, but when it hits, when they're hitting home runs, you're going to be winning games, and I think you can climb back into a playoff spot. But you might need to find some help as far as your bench goes. Yeah.
Yeah, this was week 1 for everybody. Hopefully, we're starting a winning streak here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, Cam's note on this matchup was he said he was not at all convinced by either team's performance. And despite the fact that Rob is just one game out of the playoffs at the moment, he said 0% chance either one of these teams finds themselves in the playoffs.
Wow.
I think those are some fighting words.
Absolutely.
I think anytime you have Patrick Mahomes on your squad, you're liable to, have a really good game and just catch fire. We've seen what he can do in fantasy. And like you mentioned, I mean, Shaheed seems to have that same spark quality to him where he can just go out and catch the ball 3 times and, be the highest scoring player on your team. And that Dallas defense has been carrying you all season. So, I mean, you're one game back of the 7 seed. I think it's just going to be a bloodbath to see who gets those last couple of spots.
So each week will be very much bloody, I would say.
Yeah.
Does Cam even have a winning record to make a statement like that?
He does not. No, he's exactly as good as he is bad.
Sheesh, this guy.
I know. He's got big britches. This one was really close. I mean, Alex's team has been the surprise of the last few weeks. He's been competitive in 4 straight. And has picked up 3 wins over the last couple of weeks after I think starting like 0-8. So he gave Jason, who's comfortably in a playoff position at the moment, a run for his money down to the last play of the game here. And if he hadn't gotten goose egg from Miles Sanders or negative points from his defense, would have picked up a win here. Thoughts on Jason taking down Alex in a nail biter?
I mean, Jason, he's maximizing his team week to week. If we look at his projection versus actuals, I mean, that's exactly what you want in your team, right? When you set everybody up. Lamar Jackson kind of underperformed, but even at that, he still maximized his point potential. So I think it's a well-deserved win. Again, the margin is only one less than a point. I'm doing some quick math there.
Yep.
But yeah, that's going to be tough for Alex to climb out there 3-13. And that's coming from a loser like me.
Yeah, this was like I said last week, this was kind of the rivalry game. I think these two are pretty close. And it came and look at what it produced for us. One of the best games of the week. I think both ended up being below the median as well. So really dogfight there because the median was 127 or something. I think we're all on our computers, so we don't get to see all the fun stuff.
127.92.
Oh yeah, I could use my phone. But yeah, so they were both under the median. They both, I mean, 1 point game, that's tough. You'd like to see Alex get over the hump there because that way, you know, the league is getting closer to the middle there. But either way, great matchup here. But Rob, I think like you said, again on the app, I think Jason might have the highest like points percentage of all managers. Like on the app, it shows you your percentage of points, how you're scoring, and I think he had one of the higher ones. So, like you said, he's been one of the best managers when you're maximizing your point potential, not leaving any points on the bench, just getting your best lineup in. That gets you over the line, and he won this game because he's been one of the better managers regardless of what his players are doing, whether they're out or not showing up. He's making the right moves to get the W's, and that's why he's 11-5 and full strength now. I mean, all of his players are back. I'm sure everyone's going to get hit by these bye weeks, but Jason is a team to be reckoned with, and I'm glad, like I said last week, I got it out of the way last week, but going forward here, I would not want to be in Jason's way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked about how he's getting stronger. Obviously, Taylor missed the first few games. Kamara missed the first few games. Warren seems to be getting more work in Pittsburgh. Williams on that Lions offense is wide receiver 2 already, and will continue to get more chances as the season goes on. So, I mean, I think the strong gets stronger, but I think it's also good to see, like, I was a little worried, was Alex going to be an automatic win for people all season? And it doesn't seem that that's the case. Like you've actually got to put your best foot forward to beat him. And even a team as strong as Jason, struggled against him and almost lost. So that was exciting to see.
Yeah, Jason,
on this one. No, go ahead.
Well, Jason is the best manager according to like percentage of starting your guys to maximum points for. He is the best percentage at 91.9% of all of his points.
The only thing I will say about that, though, is it's skewed when you have players on your bench who can't play the first 4 weeks because they're automatically going to get 0, right? So the odds that someone on your bench has a really big game and therefore you should have started them are lower if you have someone that you know is out for a while, right? So when he's got like Taylor and Kamara, that's 2 spots on his bench for 4 weeks that he's automatically filling properly.
Yeah.
He still is doing a really good job, but
I still think it's
slightly.
Yeah, I still think that's a good measure of like how your lineup decisions week on week is paying out. Are you making the right decisions? And he is, and that's why he's 11-5 with 2 of his best players being out for those 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Nick, you made a comment earlier about how Jason's team kind of struggled a bit, but still pulled out the win this week. I kind of want to shade that and say that Alex's team just kind of outperformed. I mean, he was less than 1 point away from taking down. Is he number 1 in our league right now? Number 2, taking down one of the top dogs in the league.
Yeah.
So Yeah, Jason definitely left some points, to be found there, but Alex's team definitely showed out this week. So definitely want to shine his team versus Jason's matchup.
Well, and that gets to, so Cam's note on this matchup was Jason's actually sitting there as the 4 seed. He's tied on record with Eric for the 3 seed. But Cam said, shine or shade, that Jason is second most likely behind Cam himself to win the championship this year.
I'll shade that
it,
because I'm obviously in the running. So is Eric. So is Josh. Jason's got a lot of work to do to be a favorite, but he is strong. I would say that.
I guess I'll shade it as well. I mean, I think Cam's about to go on a losing streak here. I hate to say it, but what's this? His first missed podcast. This has got to be all downhill from here.
It is.
Especially talking all this smack too.
So
he's picking up players who the sleeper app says like don't touch them unless you're absolutely desperate, right? So
yeah.
I mean he's clearly scared about our matchup this week. It is worrying. I'm gonna put out an SOS on Cam for sure.
I mean, he just went ghost mode on full game on Sunday. Had a player. What did he? I guess we'll get to his team, his matchup, but yeah, I'm gonna shade it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jason's going to be strong for sure, but I don't know if I would. First of all, I don't know if I would put Cam number 1, right. But I don't think I would put Jason number 2 either. Colin, your team severely outperformed projections. You were expected to win, but won by even more than the projections said, taking down the number 1 seed as things stand at the moment. A statement win against one of the league leaders. How'd you feel?
Yeah, this felt really good. It still feels really good. It ended up being a lot closer than it probably should have, because at one point I was up by quite a hefty margin there, and then his Monday night guys did pretty well too. I mean, Jameer Gibbs had 27 on Monday night, and I still won by 14. So he was getting close on Monday night, but I felt good with the 154. Last week I said if you told me that I score 150 against Josh, I'd be confident with beating him, and that's exactly what happened. So going into the week with a certain expectation and then executing and delivering definitely feels good, especially with for confidence, but also just going forward here. I don't even know who I play next week, but I will be prepared. I can tell you that.
I love the confidence. CMC's on bye next week, so we'll see how well that ages.
Wow. That's a good observation. I should have.
You've got Willie. You've got Willie next week, by the way. Just
okay, good.
Yeah. Listen, I'm looking forward. I'm not looking past. We got a lot of bye weeks coming up. CMC is about to, be on bye week. We're gonna have some shakeup here happen in the second half.
Okay. Well, I'll still be prepared.
Your team is as strong as it possibly can be. Like you said, you're preparing well. I mean, I don't know what you did in the off season this past year, but it is working for you. If you're on that Aaron Rodgers diet or what, but you're getting points, you're making things happen, and you're executing.
That's always good to hear. I mean, the draft was everything. I mean, not there hasn't been really too many trades this year, but so our drafts were hefty this year. But I went into the draft thinking one thing, and I did that thing, and look at how my team's doing. I feel good about the decisions I've been doing compared to last. Like when you compare it to last year as well, it's just been a complete turnaround. So yeah.
Yeah, my first thought, on your team looking at it post draft was that the Christian McCanary in the coal mine for your team was going to be how McCaffrey did. That if you were going to go as far as CMC could take you, right? If he got hurt early, then it was going to be another long year, like you with Jonathan Taylor last year. And if he stayed healthy, then this is going to be a team that I think makes a deep playoff run. So far, so good. He's, obviously really healthy to this point. I don't think he's missed any time at all, and is continuing to put up major points. So as long as that's the case, I think you're going to be in and around the top of the league.
Yeah.
Cam's shine or shade here, though, was, we've talked about how neither one of these teams, despite being the 1 or 2 seed, looks like an inevitable team, right? They both could potentially, maybe even with the running back ones, that might be the potential fragility for both of these teams. So Cam said, shine or shade, injuries by the end of the season catch up with both of these teams, and neither one makes the championship.
I'll shade that, definitely being part of it. I think Josh has been making all the right moves. He's set up for success for the long term because of his bench. I feel confident in my abilities to make something happen if I feel there's something there that can be, attained there. So I would say both of us are definitely have the best chances of making the championship. At least one of us will be in that championship. I'll shine. I guess I'll shade that. I don't know.
I think
You think one of them will be in the championship? That works.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot what the statement was, but I think one of us will be in the championship, definitely.
I'm also going to have to shade that comment from Cam. I feel like it's really going to come down to who has first round bye between these teams. Josh is on such a high right now. I mean, his bench can literally beat my team week in and week out. So, I think he, like you said, he's got what it takes to, go for the ship and the longevity side of things. But, it's going to be that first round of the playoffs for him. Hopefully, he doesn't have the injury bug going that late, week 14, week 15. But I think one of these teams is going to be a champion. Yes. I would love to play against, which is going to be a long stretch. I know, but that's the pipe dream. So I'm coming for you, Colin.
I assume by first round bye, you mean that you get to play Willie when all of his Bills are on a bye in the first round
Correct.
of the playoffs.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of which, despite having all of his Bills available, Willie was unable to overcome the Fighting Eric Browns. Neither team surpassing the median here. One of the wider margins of the week, and it was only a 7-point margin. Not a ton to get excited about on Willie's squad if the Bills offense isn't going off. 32 from DeAndre Hopkins, not enough for him to get the job done. Eric's team is kind of similarly dependent on the Dolphins offense, but that has seemed like a better bet this season than the Bills offense. So interesting to see, kind of two teams that have stacks going, matching up here.
Yeah, Willie, he had a lot of momentum in the early on in the season, but he definitely has a lot of stake in the Bills, who can, you don't really know, other than Josh Allen and usually Stephon Diggs, you don't know who's going to show up on that offense week in, week out. But he also has a lot of guys that like either will go off or they're not showing up. So his complimentary guys, when they're giving you 6 and 1 and 4 and 0.9, you're not going to win games. You got to have a few more guys that can really churn out some yardage and some points each week. He's relying on home run guys, and that's tough to really be consistent. You see they're 6 and 10. And then on the other side, Eric's just being consistent. He might have lost the past couple weeks and been under the median this week. But he's just showing up with the points every week. I mean, 120, that might be his low point week. So Eric is solid as well. I'm not sure he has the firepower to make something happen at the end of the season, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to echo that statement you made about, players not showing up. I think that's what's killing Willie right now. I mean, I was also pretty high draft stock wise on Stevenson. I thought he was going to have a great follow-up year, especially with, the shit that they have throwing the ball. But he's just nowhere to be found. And I'm kind of confused why he's not doing better. Like, if somebody could answer that for me, that'd be great, because I do have him in a couple other leagues. But I think that is what Willie's intention was RB1 with him. And I don't even know if I would play him at this point moving forward. Looking at Eric's team, I took a very similar approach in one of my other leagues. I'd win all Dolphins because, why not, right? But they bring in the points week after week, and I mean Robinson's starting to show up, which hopefully will carry him the next 3 or 4 games. But how much longer can Mostert go, especially on that ankle? I don't know if you saw the report from practice, but he tweaked his ankle somehow, and now he's questionable for week 9. Not that the Dolphins quite need him as much, but Eric sure does. So
Right.
I
And
think
Willie
that,
doesn't have Achan, and that's where a lot of his points came from early on.
right.
But Stevenson, as a Patriots fan, I think I, can give you some sort of an explanation because like it is confusing. He is talented. He's six, what, 6'2"? I think he's like 6'2" or
6'3".
something.
Yeah, 6'2".
Yeah, it's 250 almost maybe. So like he's a big running back and he still looks elusive. He still looks like he's got, spark in the legs. I mean, he is young, but the offense is just completely broken. And a lot of people want to blame Mac Jones for obvious reasons. You're the quarterback. You kind of, on fourth down, he throws it out of bounds sometimes. It's like, what the heck are you doing? But he's had 3 different offensive coordinators the past 3 seasons. There's always been a rotating door there. So he hasn't been able to like solidify and get concrete in a specific system or scheme. And that's going to translate throughout the rest of the offense. I mean, our receivers aren't crazy talented either. So it's hard to, they're not creating as much space as they might have been able to in the past. And especially getting rid of Josh Kobe Myers. Like,
Yeah.
he's an insane receiver, and I don't know, we didn't trade him, but like we didn't sign him, and it's like we needed him. Like so it's kind of a fragmented offense there, but a lot of it is to do with there hasn't been a lot of consistency and like stability throughout, like for a long period of time. And so it translates right to the running back where they can't throw the ball and then they can't run the ball because there's no space downfield, so they're just like stopping the run.
Yeah. And Cam's note on this one was he's not sure if it says more about the rest of the league not being able to overtake Willie's squad or if Willie is just a miracle worker with this team. He somehow has them positioned in a playoff spot, despite the fact that like RB2 is Latavius Murray, who might now be RB3 on the Bills. And Willie is currently projected this week to be starting Kadarius Toney, who has not scored more than 8 points in any game this season and is only on 38% of leagues rosters. So Cam said, his big question is it an embarrassment that nobody else is in front of Willie, or is it just that Willie is somehow, making lemonade out of lemons here? I guess we'll tell, the rest of the season will tell.
That's good, interesting perspective from Cam there. That's
Yeah.
he's really going with the extreme statements when he's not here. It seems a bit
Yeah, this
um
man's phoning it in like nothing's gonna happen tomorrow morning when everybody listens to this. Like, come on.
And speaking of, we get to another nail biter. Came down to Monday night. The second and third highest scoring teams in the league this week. The defending champ getting a much needed win. This was the other one that we kind of talked about, was a really important matchup. Two teams that are kind of in the middle of the pack and both really needing to put on a good show. At least they both beat the median, but Cam gets the head-to-head win. Joe Burrow finally finding his groove. That we talked about that earlier. The Bengals offense looks like they're back. But I mean, Cam's wide receivers, AJ Brown looks like he's having himself a year. CeeDee Lamb had himself a day. Cam just said, screw it, I don't need a tight end to beat Troy this week.
I swear to God, every time we talk about Cam's team, Trevor Lawrence has 14 points. It's the most wild thing. I thought I was having deja vu seeing 14 next to Trevor Lawrence. Thought I was in the wrong week. Um, but I mean, 157 in a win just by 0.5 points. That's insane. Um, if this was a football game, this would be the game of the year all season. It'd be 42-42 or 50-50 or whatever. I hate being in those games though, where it's close like that, and you have to watch every freaking play to make sure that your guy got the 0.2 yards. Those are fun for all of us spectators. But being in part of that must have been really tough. I'm sure they're still recovering. Here we are on Thursday night. I'm sure they're still reeling in all their emotions from that week, especially Troy being on the losing side of things. But at least they're both. I think Troy is in the playoff spot, but they're both right there in the middle of the pack. Who knows what's going to happen? But big win there for Cam for sure. Back to
I go,
500 too, I believe.
yeah, that brought him right up to 500. I got kind of a off the cup shine or shade here with this team after looking at especially Troy's bench there. Shine or shade, Troy should have won this matchup. I feel like
Yeah.
even with Cam leaving that vacancy in tight end, Troy just had some starters like Cup. I mean, what was that? 4 points from Cup that week, 6 points. Like
Um,
that's just such an irregular scoring amount for him.
Mhm.
Think about it. What was that? 10 targets. If he would have caught one more of those passes, not only would Troy have won, but obviously, Cam would be under 500 as
Yeah.
the returning champion. So, he also left 20 points on the bench with his tight end.
yep.
Wow.
Troy's
Yeah.
got Troy's got a team. He does week in and week out. He's definitely contending. I think he gets in his head a little too much and tinkers before and kind of sets him back. But this definitely should have been a win for him.
Yeah, and he's got Dobbs on his bench too, who's been QB 12 so far this season and goes to a better offense when Justin Jefferson gets back, especially. I mean, he could potentially turn Dobbs into a nice piece to help his lineup as well. But I agree. I mean, I've kind of been watching with Troy. What does he do with his Rams wide receivers? And I think if you told him before the game the Rams are going to get in a big hole early and be throwing a lot, like he would have loved that, right? And he only got like less than 10 points, 9.9 points between Cup and Nakua. It's not like one had a big game and the other one didn't, right? So, I mean, I've been curious, is he going to continue to start both of them week in, week out? And maybe this week shows like, maybe it's the Rams and not, that starting one of them, just taking a bet on which one's going to have a decent game might be the way to go instead of, trying to start both of them each week.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be having to choose between those two, especially after the year that Nakua has had so far, and then Cooper Kupp coming back from injury. I guess that'd be a tough lineup decision every week to be making. But imagine being Josh Dobbs, being a starting quarterback, and then getting traded, and you're the second guy there. that,
Yeah, I
that
did
would
notice
be
that actually
terrible.
because I was looking at him in a couple different leagues and just to have in the back pocket when Jefferson does return, and it doesn't even look like he's going to start. Like it's horrible,
Yeah.
but that's the
I
reality
think
of
he
it.
will. I think give him a week or two to learn the playbook. I bet he'll be starting come fantasy football playoff time.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. I
my
mean, it
that's
depends
my
on Jaron.
prediction.
It kind of all is in Jaron Hall's hands, the quarterback there. I think his name is Jaron Hall.
Yeah.
Um, if he plays well, then it's his job. Like if he shows up, and is able to compete, he is a rookie, and he went to BYU. I didn't know anything about him, so he's a rookie. It's gonna be tough for him to just show up rookie, as a rookie in that quarterback position. But if he plays well, Josh Dobbs will probably be on the bench.
Yeah. Well, the last young
No,
quarterback out of go ahead, Rob.
no, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
I was just gonna say the last young quarterback out of BYU, Zach Wilson, is not exactly lighting the league of flames. So I'm
No,
not gonna bet on this guy.
there. Yeah.
Before we get to Cam's comment on this one, because I'm sure it's going to be great, I wanted to get your opinion on that CeeDee Lamb start. Obviously, big boom potential there, and it showed out. But do you start him, moving forward, especially with Dak Prescott, his current week to week?
I think you have to. I mean, he's
Yeah.
this was by far the most targets he's gotten. I guess week 2 he got 13 targets, but I mean he has produced like double-digit games basically every other game this season. So I mean I don't know if I would say he's a wide receiver 1, despite the fact that like his giant game made him wide receiver 11. but I think he's a first, a wide receiver 2 at least, and can probably sneak up and give you a wide receiver 1 game every now and then.
All right. I just wanted to see your opinion on that because obviously 35 points, that's great. Like first instincts, like, yeah, this guy's going to win me week in, week out. But then you have players that, you have weeks, 6 points, 8 points, less than 10. And I
Yeah.
can see him getting, very impatient if that starts to happen with CD Lamb.
Yeah. Yeah. Cam's comment on his own game this week was, and he didn't frame this as a shine or shade. He said that this is just a true statement, that this week shows that his team is back and he is considered the favorite to be the champion again, to go back to back. I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, for the reasons we just talked about, CD can disappear at times. Cam doesn't appear to be setting his lineup at times. I think he'll get focused come playoff time. And I certainly wouldn't want to run into Cam. I mean, he's got the pedigree, he's been there before, but I still don't think this roster is top 4 in the league right now.
Yeah, I think Kyron coming back will help, but I would have to agree with that. I'm not sure. I mean, he did it last year. It's 13-11, made the playoffs, and then made the run. So as long as he makes the playoffs, he'll feel happy about where he's at. And Kyron coming back will definitely give him a solid boost. But the theme I've been saying all year is, will his team click? And you just don't know when his team is going to show up and when his team is going to be, not on even on the field. So we'll see.
Taking a quick look at Fab here. Rob, you had the high spend of the week, overspent by $26 here to receive Chase Edmonds. Thoughts on the big outlay?
I just want to skip this part.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say about this. Like my fab spending has been just god awful all season. The week before this, what I dropped 20 or two weeks before this, I dropped $26 on Zach Evans, who then I didn't start. Also got no touches that game. And then I ended up dropping and spending $27 more on an RB that's going to do the same damn thing. So I'm just kind of spending money to spend money at this point. If anybody wants to throw something my way, I mean, my wallet's open. So.
And Colin, you got picked for Leonard Fournette, 2 $11 bids. I know there was a subsequent offer to take him off Troy's hands for 12 fab. I don't know if you've considered that further.
I have considered it. I wish we knew more about these players going into every game. I wish there was more information out there for you to just grab. It's not that easy. I mean, some of these guys don't know themselves if they're going to play that week because of their ankle or whatever. So how are reporters or fantasy football owners supposed to know if they're going to play up until game time? So I wish there was just some more information about what he's doing, if he's doing first team reps, if he's going to be the goal line back, because it seems like Latavius Murray is the same kind of profile. So how are they going to have two, goal line backs when there's only one goal line? So I'm interested to see if he's really going to be like a guy that they put a lot of faith into, or if he's just going to be like a complimentary running back, throw him in there for short yardage or whatever. I'm glad I didn't spend the 11 because I think I think I might need the full 50 that I have left for the season coming up here before the playoffs and stuff, because there might be some guys that pop up. So I'm glad I didn't spend the 11, but I'm a little cautious about missing out on a guy with that kind of name, Leonard Fournette. I mean, we all know what he's capable of doing, and he's what hell is he? He's 28, so he's not even 30 yet. He can be a lead back, but is he capable of doing that still? I don't know. So we'll see here. Week one, this first week will tell us kind of what his role will be. I think. I mean, sometimes people can grow into an offense, but I think he'll be complementary rather than the workhorse. So I'm okay with missing out, but I'm excited to see what he does for them, honestly.
Yeah.
I think Lenny's going to fill that vulture role there. He's going to take at least a touchdown a game. I mean, with someone like Josh Allen, Why would you have him run it on the line when you can bring Leonard in and, peek it through just like you did for Tampa? Troy, if you're listening to this or when you listen to this, I will pay $2 more than Colin. So come my way with it. I'll take Lenny. You can even have Chase Edmonds if you want on top of that. So,
so I think that would bring your total spend for Chase Edmonds to like $40 in a sense.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think Colin, you commented on this in the league chat. I had 5 acquisitions on the waiver wire, I believe, or maybe just 4. 4 acquisitions on the waiver wire. This was 3 of these were swaps of my bench. The Sky Moore experiment is over for me. I really thought he was gonna have a good season, and he's done nothing. Kirk, obviously, with the injury. Zay Jones was hurt last week, so I moved him to IR, and I had added Chris Rodriguez because I saw he had popped up to the top of like the trending board and was like, whatever, I got a free roster spot, and he didn't really do anything. So I thought maybe Shakir, who had a big game, can sit there on the bench and maybe turn into something. And then, as we talked about, my revolving door of tight ends continues. I've had Kate Otten earlier this season. I'm going to give him another go because Michael Mayer disappointed me on Monday. So lots of small dollar acquisitions for me this week.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It just was alarming. It came out of nowhere. I feel like nobody's ever had more than 2 fab, waiver pickups, and here you are with 4. Johnny was calling me out week 2, calling me Mr. Transactions, and there's no transaction counter for some reason this year, and I'm disappointed with that, even though I know I'm going to be one of the lower ones because I feel like my bench all year has been these guys that are too good to drop, but not good enough to start, and I feel like I'm kind of been stuck with my roster all season. I love to be the guy who makes 4 waiver pickups per week, but for whatever reason this year I haven't been I don't feel confident at all with like having such a rotating door back there on the bench.
Yeah. Sneaky. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, I was just going to comment on your transactions here. I love the Baker Mayfield pickup. I think that's going to, I don't want to say average, but he's above average quarterback. I feel like at times he can, really get you 20, 22 points. And then he's got that boom factor too with Mike Evans. I mean, how many times have we seen him go 2 or 3 touchdown games? So
yeah,
not that that's where he's heading necessarily, but he has that, capability. And I kind of, when I woke up Wednesday morning and I saw this transaction list, my mind went back to the old Donald Trump show. I don't know if you ever used to watch it, where he would just literally sit in a boardroom and say, "You're fired. You're fired." That's how I pictured you going through, your pickups, your waiver lineups here, and just you're done. You're out of here. All right, your turn. And you gave Sky Moore every opportunity in the book, and at the end of the day, you wrote his pink slip. He's out.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll have like a 20-point game at some point this season.
It's going to be this week.
Yeah, but it was just like I was waiting. I mean, really on my bench, I've been waiting for guys to catch fire. And I have like 1 or 2 running backs who I kind of rotate in depending on the matchup. But other than that, just don't have a lot of like guys that I think are trending in the right direction on my bench. So it was a big week for let's just mix it up and see if like a different set of those guys can catch fire. Troy had dropped Josh Reynolds in order to pick up Parham and deny Cam of having that tight end if Cam had been paying attention heading into that matchup. And I set up a waiver wire for Josh Reynolds immediately because I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of that offense. I have Goff as my tight end, but Reynolds has, been pretty good. If Williams isn't getting it done, or like, God forbid, Amon-Ra gets hurt or something, I think Josh Reynolds has shown enough that like he could fill that void. So I'd rather have him than Sky Moore, who seems to be like wide receiver 9 for the Chiefs at this point. I also think Eric's acquisition of Treylon Burks was a really good one. He spent $1 on him. And Hopkins is like an older guy. He hasn't had a lot of, I think he was banged up coming into practice this week or something. So Burks, if he can get healthy, Burks, if he can get healthy, could be like wide receiver one. And he's got Will Levis now to work with, so that might be a better matchup for him. So that could be a really good dollar spent by Eric.
I did want to comment on that Will Levis pickup. Was that Josh?
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, Mr.
Unfortunately.
Bench coming in thick. Like, I mean, even if he, has 2 or 3 more good games, like that's one player that's off the waiver wire that, somebody like me could, pick up if Patrick Mahomes does struggle the next couple of weeks. So I think at this point he's just stashing players, and it's making it that much harder for, basically teams 8 through 12 or 8 through 11 to actually make some moves.
I love seeing young quarterbacks do well, though. I think that might have been his first start, and he does
Oh, it
that, throwing
was.
3 to D Hop. I love
Mhm.
seeing that. I mean, on Red Zone, when you hear Scott Hansen get excited about saying, "Here's another, Will Levis highlight," you're like, "Fuck yeah!" I love seeing young quarterbacks come through, especially because all the, Aaron Rodgers is probably the last one of like that era. Like it seems like we're entering a new era here of all these young quarterbacks, and I hope Will Levis can be one of these guys as well.
Yeah, he stepped up and threw what, just shy of like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Granted,
Yeah,
what was it, 2 or 3 of those went right to D Hop, but
yeah,
still, I mean, if he likes throwing to D Hop, I'm sure D Hop's going to be healthy week to week. Like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And my last Fab segment, the weekly Alex Fab watch continues. Still waiting for him to break into the double digits from the triple digits. But he is closely hoarding that Fab at the moment for a late season Fab push, apparently.
shine or shade, he uses 50% of his fab before the playoffs.
Oh, I'll shade that. I think I
Yeah.
would shade that he uses 5 of his
Really?
Fab. I don't. I mean, I think it's a coin flip. Does he use any at this point?
Do
So
Yeah.
we think he's too far gone at this point?
He
I don't
isn't.
think so. He's 3 games out of the 8 seed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and he's been playing well. Like if you knock off like the first 3 weeks of the season, he probably is in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, so you'd say he has to start spending some serious fab here.
One would think. One would think.
Yeah.
Colin, any notes on the median or any other notes?
Well, if it was 127, that's the second highest behind 128 on week 3. And Cam called it. He said that there's no, or was this the week he said there was no bye weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was no bye weeks this week. That's why we got a high median. 127 is the second highest. The next one is like 117. So there's a big, or I don't know what it is, but um I didn't see that coming. It just feels like a random, you know, mid-season week that just things kind of went off. And
I don't want to say it's because of my team, but I did score more than 100 points for the first time in weeks. So, there's that.
Yeah, that was big.
yeah, I think it's definitely going to go back down, especially because of bye weeks. I don't know if it'll go under 110. I think we're going to be back right in the middle, right where it's been at, at 115. If you can score 115 to 120 points, I think you're winning your game, and I think you're beating the median.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, we've hit the 2/3 mark of the regular season as well. So 4 weeks left. And still only 3 games separating the last playoff spot, really even the 7 seed from dead last. So with 8 opportunities left to pick up wins, I mean, there's still 12 teams alive. I know Cam will do kind of his magic number as we get closer of how many wins you need in order to lock up a playoff spot or get eliminated or whatever. But I'm really intrigued. I feel like the race probably from 6 to 12 is going to be really close. And I'm not saying that I'm immune from falling out of the playoffs, but I just think there's going to be 5 teams that in a week or 2 are kind of in, and then the rest of the league is going to be scrapping for, 4 spots. So it's going to get really exciting.
Yeah, I think like you said, the magic number. I'm not sure if you're 10 and 14, you're in the playoffs,
Probably
but
not.
maybe definitely 12 and 12 because we've seen that even you're 6 and 10 and you're in a playoff spot right now. So 12 and 12 is definitely a lock for a playoff, but maybe 11 and 13, that'll be the lowest you can be to be in the playoff spot, 11 and 13.
I think that's right. Yeah. Quick look ahead to week 9, and then we can wrap up here. We already talked about Mr. No Show himself taking me on this week. Currently a slight favorite in that one. Rob currently a slight favorite over Jason. That'll be an exciting matchup. Bottom 2 teams locking horns this week, Johnny and Alex. Definitely a winner go home matchup if there's ever been one. Colin, you are a slight favorite over Willie. A team looking to claw his way into the playoff spots. Probably the matchup of the week in terms of the 2 records involved. Eric actually a pretty big favorite compared to most of the other matchups over Josh at the moment. And then 2 6-10 teams. And I don't know if Trevor hasn't set his lineup, but only a 41% chance currently against Troy projected. No, it looks like he has. So maybe Troy gets the better of him this week.
Yeah, there's a few matchups that are very closely seeded teams, and there's already been a touchdown in the Thursday night game while we're live here. It looks like it's Najee Harris. So that's Johnny against Alex. But yeah, Johnny and Alex is the 11 versus 12. So that's closely seeded. We got Trevor and Troy, which are 8 and 9, which is that'll be a good game. Coast to coast game right there. Nick and Cam, you guys are 5 and 6. So these are tightly knit games here. I'm expecting, just like this past week, it being kind of close for everyone. And then Josh and Eric are the 1 versus 3 seed. So as we get closer here to the playoffs, it's going to be that much more. These are going to get tighter. I'm just looking forward to these next few weeks here, making sure that people are active and hopefully we see some trades, because maybe some of these managers think, they'll be able to make one move and that'll get them over the hump. But this is why we do it right here. This is it. Every week you got to be on your toes. You got to be making your lineups. You got to be checking your daily updates on some players that are maybe injured or whatever. But we're here. It's right now. You got to win. You got to start winning. You got to start moving and shaking. Here we are.
We are absolutely here. And that one move for me, Chase Edmonds. He's in the starting lineup, and we're gonna win this week. I can feel it.
Putting his cojones on the table.
How are you feeling about your matchup here, Nick?
I never like playing Cam. He's very wily. He's a dangerous. He's like an animal. Who's kind of dealing with rabies. Like he could strike at any time. And so that worries me. I do like that he's playing Jordan Love as a Packers fan who's been sorely disappointed in Jordan Love so far. I get Trevor Lawrence on bye, but on the flip side, have ETN on bye. So, as we said, I think it was a good sign that Cam felt he needed to pick up Wan'Dale Robinson. He's scratching and clawing right now. I feel like I've been an underdog by sleepers projections in like most of my matchups this year. And yet we have a winning record. So, we're ahead of him in the standings for a reason. I think it'll be a good matchup. I currently am projecting to do my 2 Cleveland Browns running backs strategy again, which worked for me a couple weeks ago. So we'll see. But if Cleveland can move the ball against Arizona on the ground, I think is going to be the difference in this one.
Now, if Ford is good to go on Sunday, what's your backup plan here?
We don't have a ton. Madison, who seems to average like an inch a carry and split them. So, we don't love that. Madison's kind of been disappointing. He's kind of my Ramondre Stevenson on this squad. Or I think Damian Pierce is also potentially injured. So we might, Shakir might get to see the field at his first week as a Big Nick Energy. So we'll see.
Yeah, considering you made all those waiver wire pickups, you have nothing to work with if something happened. Almost nothing to work with if something happens here.
I didn't want to be the one to point it out, but I tried to get you there. You picked up
it's
so many people, and are you starting any of them?
it's another big bye week. Well, we're starting Baker. So the reason
Okay.
I had to pick up a quarterback was Goff is on a bye this week. So I was down to 0 QBs that were available to start this week. So it's another big bye week for me. I mean, Mitchell is a guy who's just like, I've been not hoping, but kind of keeping my fingers crossed that CMC might tweak something. Because I think like any running back in that offense is going to be huge, and it would be big for my team if like Elijah Mitchell became the starting running back. Then we would have like a plethora of backs, which is what I like on my squad. So, you know, I might need to cut bait with him at some point if McCaffrey really is going to stay healthy all season. But, you know, it's a slender week for my squad. Slim pickings on the bench. A lot of guys resting up this week. So we'll see. Any final thoughts on your matchups or anything else before we adjourn?
Let's take a look at my matchup real fast. I want to see if Sleeper updated for. Click on Patty Mahomes. Oh man, on the app he's showing as Kermit the Frog. And I know Troy and I have been going back and forth about these pictures in the thread there. So wanted to give it to him live here, but I guess not. So sorry, Troy.
Well, I'm gonna have to go check that on the app though. That is hilarious.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed that this Sleeper, I know it's called the Sleeper app, but like their desktop version is just it's just such a letdown. Like get with it. People are on their computers sometimes. Like I don't get it.
The app is so intuitive. The analytics that thing gives off, it has no business being where it's at. And then you come to desktop and it's like we're back at, hotmail.com.
I know,
Yeah.
for real.
It works, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's I might have
Not
to
yeah, this podcast is not sponsored by Sleeper at all.
I might have to tweet Sleeper again because early on in the season, I had Tyquan Thornton and they wouldn't update his status to IR, so I couldn't move him to IR. So I tweeted them and said, "Yo, get your shit together. Correct Tyquan Thornton's status so I don't miss any more transactions." And they did it within a couple hours. I'm about to tweet them saying, "Yo, fix your desktop because sometimes I'm not on my phone. Sometimes I don't
Tell
have
him,
my iPad."
tell him to watch the pod and see that Patrick Mahomes does not look like Kermit the Frog, and they need to figure this out immediately.
I have evidence of it.
I'd send him a tweet and offer to work for him at this point. You're basically doing half their job.
Well, good luck to all the players. Another important week of action as we come down the stretch of the regular season. I'm sure there will be lots of exciting things to report on next week. But Rob, it was great having you on the pod again. Amazing insights as always, and look forward to seeing you out there on the gridiron.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, guys. Looking forward to coming back next season.
Of course. Thanks, Rob, as always. And I'm sure we're all gonna be getting on our couches watching this Thursday night bout between the Steelers and the
Titans.
Titan. Okay, maybe we won't all be watching that game, but we'll definitely be able to get this podcast out before everyone goes to bed, I think. So that'll be good.
Yeah.